that I really want to get to, and I hope we have a few minutes to do that, is called witnessing. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about, because it's not so easy to see this. How does a fish know it's in water? How many fish do you figure know they're in water? Do any fish know they're in water? If all you've ever known is water, would you ever see the water? You figure? David Foster Wallace, a very, very fine author and essayist, who's no longer with us, unfortunately, was giving a commencement address in 2005, and he told a little story to open up the commencement address I liked, and he went like this. See, there's these two fish, they're swimming along, young fish, and they pass by this older fish, and the older fish going the opposite direction, says to him, however fish speak, it's a metaphor again, how's the, good morning, boys, how's the water? And the two fish don't know what to do with that, and so they sort of swim on, and the older fish goes its way. And a little while past, one fish looks over at the other and says, what the hell is water? Well, if you've only lived your whole life in water, you wouldn't know what is water, unless, what? Unless you get out of the water, that's right. Exactly, brilliant, that's true. And there are a few fish that get out of the water, and they're the only ones that know they actually are in water. The rest of them then don't know. They've just been in it all their life. You ever met a person who's been wandering in the desert of their lives, in whatever form that takes, all their life? And it's been like wandering in a desert. This is how they describe it to me. What would they know about sand? What's sand? That's all they've ever known. They wouldn't know what sand is unless they had an experience outside of it, would they? No different. So a fish can no more see that as in water than the mind can see itself, and particularly the lenses it's looking through. The mind cannot see itself from inside of itself. So the only way you could actually see your mind is how? Anyone? You have to be outside of the mind. That's right. Fritz Perls, a wonderful psychologist who's, again, no longer with us. He gave seminars at Big Sur Esalen for years. And he was a very serious guy, a very, very fine therapist. But he was also equally irreverent and silly. But one thing he said repeatedly throughout all his seminars, and people thought he was mad, but of course he was incredibly sane. And of course, if you're in a mad society and you're sane, you're called insane, and everybody else is supposedly sane, right? That's the way it works. Anyways, he said, lose your mind and come to your senses. He said it repeatedly, all the time. But nobody wants to lose their mind because we know what that means, right? We've seen those movies and seen those pictures, and we don't want to get anywhere near that, thank you. So I say it just a little bit differently, not much. How about going out of your mind to come to your senses? That'd be rather cool, wouldn't it? That'd be rather nice. It's the only way you actually can come to your senses, as in being present, which is what the whole thing's about. And so I even brought you a cartoon that I hope you can quickly kind of take a look at it. It's a very unusual cartoon, a very deep cartoon, actually. It was in the New Yorker, obviously, but it has no caption. And it shows a fish in the water looking rather oblivious, blowing bubbles. You see him there, right over here. And then there's this fish in a boat, sort of abiding there, not doing much of anything, having a big smile on his face. What is going on here? Any ideas? It's peculiar. In fact, this cartoon so mesmerized me, I kept circling back to it for 5 days. You ever do that? You kept coming back to something because it wasn't finished with me. There was something more there to get. I didn't know what it was. But I kept circling back to it, right? Like a mechanical thing you're working on in the garage, and you just can't get something to work. You keep coming back to it until you find a way to make it work, right? Maybe with a friend or somebody who's a student in some area, but you keep circling back to it. So I circled back to it on the 5th day. I saw something I hadn't seen the previous 4 days. You know what I saw? You saw the fishbowl. No, the fishbowl was there all along. Any guesses? Any ideas? Which fish is in the present moment? The one in the boat. Okay, very good. That's right. That's accurate, I think. I'm sorry? This one's blowing bubbles. Okay, so this one's blowing bubbles, and this one's in the present. And this one knows it was water because it's out of the water, right? Okay. Any other ideas? What I saw on the 5th day, and it took me 5 days, so don't feel badly that I'm only giving you a few seconds here. They're really the same fish. The fish in the boat is looking at itself as the fish in the water. It's a beautiful example of witnessing, and no different than our standing outside of our minds, being able to see our minds. And the thing about seeing the mind is it's not a pretty picture. In terms of tools and helpful stuff, that's wonderful, and intelligence, don't get me wrong, that's all great, right? Great. But I'm talking about all the idiocies and the shenanigans and the passive-aggressive stuff, the manipulative stuff, and the agendaing and the pushing you, and time, you're late, you're early, you're this, you're that, all the comparisons, all that stuff, all the judgments, all the opinions. None of that's terribly pretty, is it? Bunch of idiocy, shenanigans, machinations, craziness in a way. In fact, in a way, you could even call it insane, stark raving mad, and I wouldn't disagree with you. It's not a metaphor, by the way. I mean it literally, as a false identity. But the weird part about the story is, if it's a false identity, does it even exist in the first place? Does it? Show me. Show me your ego. Show me your mind. Go ahead. Nobody's been able to do that with me. I'm still waiting for something. Oh, well, gee, here it is, you know. Hasn't happened.